My next guest helps entrepreneurs, speakers, and authors go from best kept secret to go to expert by guesting on aligned podcasts. Please welcome Christina Lenkowski. Welcome to the Powerful Female Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Anna Patricia Bourgeois, certified business coach. I am here to help you up-level, generate consistent wealth, increase your confidence, attract dream clients, and master your mindset so that you can fully own your power and achieve next-level results in your online business and beyond. Every week, a powerful conversation will take place with amazing guests, or I'll share from my experience to help inspire you to start and scale the business of your dreams while being powerfully you. The time has come to stop playing small, stop hiding, and stop waiting. Now is the perfect time for you to passionately pursue your heart's desire as the powerful leader you were born to be. Are you ready? Let's do this. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Powerful Female Leaders Podcast. I'm here today with Christina. Hey, girl.
Hey, I'm so excited to be in front of your audience today. I love talking to other powerful female leaders, and it's just going to be a great time. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Thank you so much for doing this. And let's go with it. Let's jump right in and tell us who you are, what you do, and what got you into what you do.
Okay, perfect. You might have to remind me of the last two of those when we get going, but yes, let's get into it. So, my name is Christina Lenkowski, and I am the founder of Publicity by Christina. And we are essentially a PR agency that focuses on helping entrepreneurs go from best kept secret to go to expert in their respective industry by being a guest on other people's podcasts. I'm dedicated to the under-recognized entrepreneur. So for us, that means women, members of the LGBTQ community, members of the BIPOC community, and neurodiverse entrepreneurs. And that is I guess I should say those are the voices that we're really interested in getting out there into the world. And so that's what we're dedicated to here. And we just work with our clients to get them booked on aligned podcasts. So podcasts full of that ideal customer. How I got started in this is I've actually been in PR for a long time, over 15 years. And actually more than that now at this point. Oh man. Had to think about that for a sec. But I got started doing PR and marketing basically right after college, and worked for different agencies for, big accounts, small accounts, all that type of good stuff. Worked for different agencies around the US. And I had my daughter in 2014. And after that, at the time, I was a senior account exec for a PR agency in where I live, Boise, Idaho. And at that point, after I came back, we tried to make it work. They tried to make it work. I tried to make it work. I'm sure a lot of your listeners can understand and empathize with this, but it just couldn't happen, right? I didn't want to work full time. And that was being an account executive. That's kind of what you needed to do. And so I took about a year off. I just did some kind of freelance writing work every now and again. But then eventually people started to ask me about consulting. So my particular area of expertise was tourism PR and publicity. So that's what I was really focused on. And I decided in, I guess, 2017 that I was going to start an actual business around that. And then in 2018, I was like, all right, now I'm going to launch an online course. And so I did that. I worked, I followed all these gurus and I got a course out there into the world. But the thing was, the way that they were saying to promote it did not work for me.
Yeah.
So they were kind of saying, hey, you got to spend a lot of money on ads. You got to drive people to webinars. And then obviously you're going to get sales. Right. and because I was new to this whole world, I just took that at face value. I was like, all right, well, this is what they say to do. So I guess this is just what you do. So I want to be clear. I was doing a course on publicity and I did no publicity. And, in a shock to no one, it absolutely failed. It was a huge money pit. It was, it did not go well, anything like that. My husband was like, so what are we doing here? Like after like I've been like, I'm gonna start my own business. And I was like, okay, I've done all this. I believed in the program. And so I was like, all
Mhm.
right, the next time I launch, I'm gonna do this my way. And so what I
Mm.
started to do was use those publicity skills that I'd honed for, over a decade at that point, and started to get myself booked on podcasts, which at this time were like still very much up and coming.
Mhm.
And I get myself booked on podcasts, and the difference that I saw in my business was huge. I had
Mm.
people that were reaching out to me about consulting. I had people that were just buying my product right off the shelf. Like they didn't have to go through a long nurture cycle, right? Like they were like, I
Mhm.
heard you on the show. I liked what you had to say. Boom. Like I'm going to buy this program. And I started to realize, wow, publicity is really missing in this online entrepreneurship world.
Yeah.
And so what I did at first was, at first I just was booking myself on shows. I was in that tourism PR business, speaking on stages, which podcasts absolutely led to for me, all that great stuff. And then 2020 hit, the pandemic hit.
Mm.
And I was like, I know this is a really long story, by the way, but it gets to the reason
Yes.
as to why. But the pandemic hit, and I saw pretty quickly the writing on the wall. I was like, tourism, this isn't going to go good because if you're unaware, your tourism money comes from hotel tax, right? So that
Mm.
amount you pay whenever you stay in a hotel or an Airbnb, that's how tourism in your area gets funded. And so
Mhm.
when people weren't going anywhere, that meant that no money was going to come into these places. And so I was like, okay, well, like I'd already had this idea to kind of move into teaching more publicity. Like, this is it, right? This is the time to do it if I'm going to do it. And so I started out by teaching people how to pitch themselves onto shows and stuff like that. And eventually, enough people were just asking me if I could do it. And so I started, just out as a solopreneur. But I had certain things that I was going to do differently than a traditional agency because there were things I didn't like about working
Mhm.
at traditional agencies that I was like, this isn't how I'm ever going to do it. So I started my business that way and eventually added on more publicists and grew into the agency that we have today.
Wow, that's an incredible story, and I'm so glad that you shared it because it really shows that it's not a straight line, like we're
Oh
gonna go
no,
through
no,
ups and
no.
downs.
Yeah. There's a lot of pivots and turns in that story for
Yes.
sure. And I think in most entrepreneurs' stories, they thought it was gonna go
Yeah.
one way and it ended up going, a different way and then maybe a different way after that. And so I
Yeah.
hope that some of you out there can relate to that of just like finally figuring out what works, but it taking some
Mhm.
time.
Yeah. Oh, so good. And so I'm really curious, like, what makes a really effective podcast pitch? Like what are the elements that makes a pitch a good pitch?
I think the number one thing that people overlook is taking some time to do research. This is
Mm-hmm.
absolutely the difference between a pitch that will land and something that people aren't even going to look at.
Mm-hmm.
We call it, and there's a lot of people that do this, a lot of, even agencies that do this. We call it the spray and pray method. So that's where they essentially write out a pitch that's not personalized at all, send it to a bunch of people, and just kind of
Mm-hmm.
fingers crossed that it lands and that a few people pick it up, right? And say, yeah, let's
Mm-hmm.
have you on the show. And for us at Publicity by Christina, that is not at all the way that we pitch. So we are all about actually taking some time to get to know that show. And that's listening to some of the show, that's going on the social media channels, that's actually when we send a pitch using the first name of the host, like
Mm-hmm.
that seem really really basic but a lot of people overlook. And you probably can say that, you can
Yes.
probably say that, Anna. You can say I get a lot of pitches, and
Oh
i
yeah.
and i know that most of them, and maybe you have a different stat, but most people I talk to, most hosts I talk to, they're like, I would say 95% of the pitches I get are absolute crap, and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And so they're like, when I do get good pitches and people have clearly listened to the show or they've clearly done some research, like I'm much more open to looking at that pitch and seeing if there's a way to bring that guest on.
Yeah, it's so true. Like I can notice the difference when someone is truly genuine and they've listened to at least one episode.
Hmm.
And I'm much more inclined to say yes, that's for sure.
Yes. So I think that that's really a big thing
Mhm.
about the pitch. I think the other thing is your topics.
Mhm.
So this is another thing that we really beat the drum on here at Publicity by Christina, and that is that you got to come in with topics. So I
Mm.
think that a lot of people, when they send a pitch, they think that they're making it easier for the host by just bulleting out some things that they could talk about
Mhm.
on, right? Like, oh, I'm an expert in marketing, branding, sales, right? Whatever. And this goes way back to my my journalism degree days at Oregon State University, is like, you got to make it as easy as possible to get to the yes.
Yes.
So you have to come with solid topic ideas that are going to bring value to their audience. I can't even tell you the amount of, I would say 9.9 times out of 10, a host is going to choose a topic that we send them. Now, of course, they might have, maybe want to add something to it or something like that. Of course, that's great. That it certainly doesn't like have to be set in stone, but they like that we come to them with solid ideas that really make sense for their audience.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that so much. And yeah, it truly does make a difference. And so I'm curious to know, like, why is it so important for you to really give that voice to under-recognized business leaders?
I think because for a long time, those voices just weren't heard.
Mhm.
Even at the beginning of podcasts kind of blowing up, it was legit just like 30
Mhm.
white dudes talking to each other on podcasts. And like, look, I'm married to a lovely white dude. Like, I'm there. That's fine, but it's not who I'm looking to necessarily get business advice from.
Mhm.
And I think that that is super important for people to understand, is like, we have clients that fit, they're these wonderful clients that fit in these molds. And when people hear them on shows and they resonate with what they have to say, they actually see
Mm.
themselves in them. That makes them so much more likely to want to connect with that person, right? They
Mhm.
remember their story, they remember the things they've been through. And so there's so much value in bringing your true, authentic self,
Mhm.
into a conversation that other people are really going to remember. And so that's a huge reason why we do it. Like, I'm all
Yes.
about getting that, those kind of different voices and different viewpoints out
Mm.
onto the podcast airwaves.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I'm the same. Like I've given like the stage to so many women from all different
Yes.
backgrounds, all different
Mhm.
races, religion, and it's
Yep.
been incredible to learn so much from
Oh, that
so many
too.
different perspectives. Yeah.
Totally, totally. I learn a lot from our clients. Like, my daughter is neurodiverse. She has autism. And so
Mhm.
when I have these amazing clients that, are neurodiverse and they're building their
Mhm.
businesses with autism and ADHD and these types of things, and they're doing it on their terms, like, I learn a lot from that, and I'm incredibly inspired by it as well.
Yes. Ah, so inspiring for sure.
Yes.
Amazing. So, what would you say is like the greatest like accomplishment you've ever had, maybe in your business or in your life? Like, what did you take away from that accomplishment?
Oh man, this is a great question. I'm not, what's funny about this question is, and I don't know if I have any fellow Enneagram sevens out there, but we never look back. We're
Mhm.
always looking forward. And so I love this question because it does make you reflect back
Mhm.
on those things. And I would say, of course, there's things that I'm very proud of my family and of my business,
Mhm.
those types of things. But I think that those, kind of go without saying. But I think that this is going to sound kind of funny, but like, I'm not a runner, for
Mhm.
instance, right? Like, me running, no, thank you. But like 8 or 9 years ago, a group of my kind of high school buddies and stuff like that were like, hey, we're going to run Hood to Coast, which is this big race that goes from Mount Hood to the Oregon coast. And you run in teams of, I think it's like teams of 8 or 10, something like that. Look, see, I'm like the worst. I'm like, I don't even know how many people are on the team. But they were like, hey, we have an extra spot. Can you come do it? And then they like, and I was like, oh, I mean, I can, but like, just so you know, like, I'm not a runner, right? Like, some of these people are like on my team, they're friends of mine, they're like legit runners.
Wow.
And I was like, look, I'm not. like, I'm not here to, like, I'm not a runner, and they were like, oh, well, what do you think's your average mile? And I was like 15-minute miles. They were like, and I don't think they believed me. And then actually when we ended up ending, I ended it like literally a 15-minute mile. And I was like, I told you what it was going to be. But anyways, like, doing that and committing to that, even though it's not something I necessarily enjoy doing, but the persevering through it, and then the literal euphoria when it was done, like when I finished my third leg, I was like, I don't even remember a time when I've been like that happy, like genuinely happy, A, because it was done, but B, just like, wow, that was something that you actually did. Like, you did not think you could do it, and you walked half of it for sure, but like, you finished it. And I think that for me, that was kind of a huge mindset thing of like, it doesn't matter what pace you go at, it doesn't matter this or that, but like, you got it done. And so I think for me, that's actually a huge accomplishment in my life. And I might seem very insignificant to people, but for someone who naturally doesn't enjoy that or doesn't really want to do that, like, finishing it was definitely a big thing for me.
Yes, like the commitment and like being
Yes.
like, yes, I can do this. I can finish it. It's so
Yes.
like, I feel like we all go through these phases sometimes, like doing something like we don't really want to do, but we still do it and we're so proud of ourselves.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I was, you know what? That's the way to put it. I was legit proud of myself.
Yeah.
And I don't think that, particularly as women, we take a lot of time in our life to recognize that, right? Like,
Yes.
we don't take a lot of time in our life to be like, man, you crushed that, like, we just like, I wish we did, but I mean, myself included, I tell my friends that, right? I tell my people that work for me that, but I feel like, we don't really take that time. And so when you have that moment of like self-pride,
Yes.
I think it's something that just sticks in your head and you remember, because you're like, damn, like, I was real proud of myself right then.
Yeah, and I can feel that, your clients must feel the same way. Like, let's say they're afraid of podcasting or showing up
Oh
and
yeah.
using their voices, and then
Mhm.
they work with you, and then they learn how to do all of this. They must be so proud.
I do think they are. And I think that that's something
Yeah.
that I love that you said that, because I think it's really important to recognize. Like I said, is like, I ask people a lot this, like when I train and when I do things like that, I'm like, what do you think is the worst that could happen?
Mm.
Like, what do you think is the worst that can happen if you put yourself out there on a podcast? And for most people, the answer is kind of along the lines of like, I say something wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I stumble over what I meant to say, or people think, well, why are they talking about this? Like, they're not an expert,
Mm-hmm.
XYZ. And, I always say to people, I'm like, you know what? Those things could happen. Those things could happen. I stumble over my words all the time. I swear when I don't mean to, you know, um, those things absolutely happen, which, by the way, no host is out to get you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So just know that if you really mess saying something up, like I could always say to Anna, like, hey, do you mind if we just stop and you ask that question again and we go again? Like,
Yeah.
it's all good. Okay. But beyond that, people kind of get up in those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say those things could happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is not the end of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, your business will go on even though you said something wrong, even though you stumbled over your words, even if somebody thought, some person that obviously has some kind of insecurity issues felt like you weren't the person to be talking about XYZ, right?
Yeah.
So those things can happen. I truly, from the bottom of my heart, believe that the worst thing that can happen is you don't put yourself out there.
Mm.
No question. Because how do you expect your business to grow if you are not getting in front of new people? It won't.
Mm.
And so I think that that is something that I really, really try to work with people on, is like, don't get caught up in this. I think this could happen. I think this could happen. This could happen. You got to put yourself out there. Your first interview, your second interview, they might not be great, right? Like,
Mhm.
you might feel nervous and stumble and this or that, but it's like anything. You're got to do it more and you're going to get
Yes.
much better at it.
Ah, this is so good. This is exactly what I've been saying all along.
Yes, I love it. Tell them. Tell them.
And it's so funny because like most of my guests are just like, "Oh wow, it went by so fast. I had so much fun." I'm like, "You see, it's not that bad."
Oh no, 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 no. I mean, you're a wonderful host, and that's the thing, you guys. Like,
Mhm.
you're gonna meet people, and the
Yeah.
lovely thing about being a guest on a show is that connection with that host as well.
Mhm.
So, getting in front of a new audience is wonderful, but you also have this opportunity to connect with someone on usually quite a deeper level
Yeah.
than you would otherwise.
Mm.
And so, the way you can leverage podcasts is just there's multiple ways to do it.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Ah, so so good.
Thank you, thank you.
So I ask this to everyone who comes on the show, and I'm curious to know your answer. For
Okay.
you, what does it mean to be a powerful leader?
I think for me what it means to be a powerful leader is showing up authentically.
Mhm.
And so I am not perfect in any way, shape, or form. Right now I'm legit sitting here in my pajama top from earlier today. So luckily we're not on video, so Anna doesn't have to see that. But I think that it's just showing up as who I actually
Mhm.
am. And letting that be, hey, you don't have to do this or that or whatever to run a successful business. You can be who you are. And I've also really, really gotten into leaning into my strengths.
Mm.
Like right now, each of our employees like takes a strengths finder assessment. And I've of course done it as well. But I think that
Mhm.
that is a way that I show up as a leader, is not trying to fix the strengths I don't have,
Mm.
but trying to hire for those, but then really doubling down on the strengths that I do have.
Mhm.
And that's a huge way that I show up as a leader, which is saying you don't have to be this way. You just got to be who you are,
Yeah,
and that's where your satisfaction is going to come in, and your kind of zone of excellence is going to come in.
I love it. Ugh, focus on what you're good at.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. I think, and it's hard. Like, trust me, there are days when
Yeah.
I'm like in the weeds doing stuff, and I'm like, this is not what I like, and I am good at, this or that. So, but that's part of being a business owner. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is.
But just in general, trying to remember that, okay, my strengths are this, so I need to be
Mhm.
doing more of this. And if your strengths are speaking, if your strengths are influencing, if they are getting in front of other people and telling your story,
Mhm.
then podcast is a place that you should be doing
Love it. Definitely. 100%. I support this message.
that. I'm gonna get a stamp
Yeah.
that says that. Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Amazing. So, do you have any last piece of wisdom that you'd like to share with the audience today?
Just get out there and do it.
Yeah.
Whether that is pitching yourself on podcasts, whether that's hiring someone to pitch on your behalf,
Mhm.
either way, you need to be getting out there. I have a goal for everybody, and I hope that your listeners take on this goal as well, which is 24 podcasts in 2023. That's what I want to see you on. Okay. That's what I
Ooh.
want to see every single person that's listening to this on. And that's only two a month. And I think that that's a pretty reasonable amount for people to kind of wrap their heads around. And the reason for this is, if you're ready to get visible, you have to be consistently showing up in front of your ideal customers. And a
Mhm.
great way to do that is by being a guest on podcasts. There are other ways too. You can speak on stages, you can be in summits. Like, there's a lot of different ways that you could be doing your marketing. But I think that podcast is one of the easiest ways for you to get out there, be telling your story, be getting in front of new people. The analogy that I always like to give is, ice freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius if you're anywhere else in the world. And before that happens, all this stuff is happening under the surface that we don't see, um,
Mhm.
until that ice freezes. And that's a lot of what publicity is like. You are going to show up in all these different places, getting in front of your ideal customer over and over and over again, being on all these shows, speaking at different things, maybe writing an article, whatever it is that gets you in front. And then boom, you will solidify and become that expert. So it's all
Mhm.
about setting the intention, having a goal. Again, my goal is 2 times a month in 2023 for you to be guesting on shows, and getting out there, spreading the word. Trust me, people will hear your story, and they will relate to you, and they will find
Mhm.
you.
Yes, amen. For sure. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. So, where can people go to connect with you further in the online space and see what you're all about and hear more about your services?
Absolutely. So a great place to start is at podcastpublicityquiz.com. We have a really, really fun quiz that you can go through and determine what that next best step is for you when it comes to podcast publicity. So that's a great way to find out if you would be more interested in our do-it-yourself training or perhaps having our team pitch on your behalf. That's a great place to start there. You can also find me on Instagram at PublicityXChristina, and it's Christina with a CH. And that's where I kind of, go about my day to day, talking about what we have going on, what's going on over here. Usually make a lot of BTS references, big BTS fan over here. And that's kind of what I got going on.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much again for coming on the show today. It was awesome talking to you.
Thank
and we'll
you.
definitely stay in touch.
Yes. Sure. I mean, that's the beauty of the podcast. We will.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Powerful Female Leaders podcast. If you love this episode, make sure to spread the message, leave a review, and subscribe. I would forever be grateful for you. I also want to hear from you, and I want to know your feedback and your questions for future episodes. So don't be shy, say hi, and send me a message at Powerful Female Leaders Podcast on Instagram. Until then, I'll see you on the next episode.